This is so sad. Destiny 2 Renegades launches with lowest day one Steam player count in history, despite positive early reviews. So, we recently talked about this yesterday when we had the launch of Destiny 2 and Renegades. It was at 70,000. Day 2 is not looking any better, 52,000. And we're past peak hours now. So, it's a pretty big drop off from day 1 to day 2. And honestly, I played the campaign and I thought it was pretty good. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that have played it. But I think there's just a ton of really burnt out people on Destiny 2 and fed up with Bungie. So we're at a kind of a weird crossroads here. Here we go. Let's see what we got to say here. Destiny 2 Renegades is getting good early feedback from players, but new Steam data shows the expansion open to the lowest day one peak in the series history, which is true. Destiny 2 Renegade's newest expansion is officially out. It sends players back to Mars into a lawless frontier full of smugglers and crime syndicates where they team up with the Drifter, Erismorn, and Anor Mahal to stop another extinction level threat. It's also Destiny's first full crossover expansion, with Bungie partnering with Lucasfilm to bring in Star Wars inspired weapons, armor, and big cinematic moments while still keeping the story rooted in Destiny's own universe. And I think they did an okay job with the crossover. Obviously, it's a lot of just Star Wars things renamed to Destiny things, which, they're also readjusted to the sandbox and how Destiny 2 functions to a certain degree. And if you're a big fan of Star Wars, I think you'll really like it. But like I said before this, I don't know that there's like this big looming Star Wars fandom that just travels around and jumps into whatever thing the IP collaborates with. So I think that's why we're seeing, maybe less interest, and maybe people are just really burnt out from how bad Edge of Fate was that they're just not willing to give anything a second try right now. And the best case scenario from this point forward would be that Destiny 2 Renegades is like a slow cooker, that it starts off low and keeps and maintains a certain level of population. Obviously, we got the new dungeon coming out. We got an exotic mission and a variety of different things. So maybe it's possible, if you're trying to look at it from the glass half full, the optimistic approach, maybe it's possible that we can maintain a substantial amount of players and keep an equilibrium as we progress forward through the next 6 months. Many players say the campaign is pretty good. People are talking about louder set pieces, mission design, and especially the new blaster weapons. After a rough year, Renegades already comes across as a course correction for Destiny 2. I agree. This is actually significantly better than Edge of Fate. I mean, let's be real here. It's not much to compare to, but this is much better than Edge of Fate. And the part that's a little bit, I don't know, the part that's a little bit startling from this is that when Bungie does cook, it's almost like maybe it was a little too late, right? And so now we've got like some good stuff to do. There's some fun things. There's a reason to log in. And for some reason, it's been so long since people have associated those feelings of positivity with Destiny 2 that maybe they're just not even interested, They feel like they're just going to get burned again, maybe. Who knows what it is? There's probably a lot of reasons why people are not checking back in or checking on Destiny 2 right now, or at least in terms of the Steam population. It seems to be that, a lot of people weren't as hyped about it. But the bigger picture for Destiny 2 is still rough. The last expansion, The Edge of Fate, launched to a negative reception about grind, new currencies, and the portal. Steam population then sank to record lows over the following months, and a lot of long-running players walked away. Now the first numbers for Renegades are in, and on PC, it has not managed to match even Edge of Fate's day one peak. And Edge of Fate did terrible at 98,000 on day one, didn't hit 100,000. We thought that was startling, and we were like, this is not good. And for Renegades to do substantially worse than that is pretty crazy. Destiny 2 Renegades Steam player count compared to past expansions. According to the data from Steam database, Renegades hit a day one peak of 71,000 concurrent players on Steam. This is the lowest peak out of every major Destiny 2 expansion, season, episode, and paid drop. Edge of Fate, which already had a rough launch, managed 98,211 on day one. Even smaller drops like Episode Heresy and Episode Revenant landed higher at 77,000 and 78,000. So even Heresy and them did. It's interesting to compare the difference between the two. 77,000, 78,000. If we compare Renegades to the big expansions, the drop off looks even worse. Lightfall opened at 316,000. Of course, comparing it to these is a bit rough because these are like big annual expansions that are meant to really get a big spike in population and then kind of fall off. I mean, it's supposed to be a live service, so technically With a box product game, you're supposed to have a massive amount of population and then it goes off, it fizzles out quickly. With a live service, you're supposed to continue to grow or at least maintain a certain degree of your population. Renegades is sitting at around 23% of Lightfall's day one peak and roughly 72% of Edge of Fates. That is a massive fall for a game that once pushed over 300K on Steam alone. This is true. I mean, this is just being honest with the data. I think some people are like, oh no, 70 is fine, guys. 70 is fine. This is perfectly acceptable. And we're not here to say that 70,000 is terrible and that 100,000 is the minimum, or like, it's not like some arbitrary number that we're creating in our heads that therefore Destiny 2 is dying or doing bad. It's just, we're just comparing where we're at now to where we were at, right? Like if we always, like if for the last 6 years we had 72,000 on a new launch every 6 months or something, right? Then we'd be like, everything's fine, guys. Like for the last 5 years, it has been at this like roughly around this area, you know. But when you are honest with the data and you're looking at the past and you see how the graph is like getting lower and lower month by month, you're like, you have to come to the opinion that this is not good. Like this is we're still in a decline. I was really hoping that Renegades would pull us up from this, like uplift us from this decline. I was so optimistic. I said that I was excited when I first saw it, and every trailer along the way, we recorded a video, a reaction, and we talked about it, and we were hyping it up as much as possible. I feel like people are like, "Oh, I saw some funny comments. They're like, look, you didn't hype up Renegades enough. And that's why it did bad. Like it was all my fault. Like my bad, you know? Like I guess it's on me, you know? I won't do that next time, I suppose. But my genuine opinion was that I was excited to play Renegades. I was skeptical about what it was going to do for the whole population because it's just a natural tendency when things fizzle out, it's harder to get people back, you know? This is just common business principle, you know? Like if you're selling someone something, whatever that product is you're selling, when they feel like they've been burned or when they get fatigued of said product, it's harder to sell it to them a second time, a third time. You know, we're going on however many years, the 12th time, right? It gets harder to do that because people associate negative memories with that. Oh, I played Edge of Fate and I didn't really have fun, right? When that's the last taste you have in your mouth, it's hard to convince people that Renegades is actually good, you know? And that's what I'm literally saying. I think the Renegades campaign was great. I had a lot of fun, really cool experiences, and I gave my honest review of it. If you haven't seen it, if you want to watch the whole thing, I don't want to sit here and repeat myself, but if you want to watch the whole video, it's up on the channel. But unfortunately, people are too burnt out to even log in and give it a try, it would seem, which is super sad. Of course, this is only one platform. Destiny 2 is also on PlayStation, Xbox. You're our only hope, console. Console, please lock in right now. You and you alone are responsible for saving the Destiny 2 franchise. And those numbers are not public, so we'll never know. But we kind of can know from Popularity Report, which has been suspiciously quiet for some reason. I don't know why. We are on day 2, and we don't have any numbers for what day 1 was looking like. I'm not sure if it's more difficult to update their site after this new expansion. I'm not sure how it all works. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I know how this site works or anything like that. But it's definitely suspicious and weird that we're not getting any information as to regards to the console numbers from day 1 Renegades. So a little bit confused to what's going on there, but maybe we'll get an answer from them soon and maybe we'll see what the numbers are. But Steam is still a useful barometer for interest among the audience, and right now the chart is heading in one direction. Exactly. It's important to understand that even though Steam is a smaller platform compared to PlayStation and Xbox, those are the two juggernauts in terms of Destiny's population. Some games are more PC centric, other games are more console centric, meaning the audience favors one over the other. Because Destiny 2 came from a console only game, which is Destiny 1, that had a bunch of PlayStation exclusives. A lot of people are PlayStation players that have migrated with the franchise year after year. And even though the game has gone to PC, a lot of them don't really express interest in going to PC as well. You match cheaters. PvP is way sweatier. You know, people are always trying much harder on PC. That's where all the streamers are, right? So if you want to match a bunch of sweaty streamers that, you know, live on the game in trials, then, you know, well, log into PC. And, you know, alternatively, you can match a bunch of cheaters, but there's plenty of cheaters as well in console, people using Cronus's and all that bunch of dog shit. But the next part reads, the ironic part is that Renegades itself seems better received than Edge of Fate so far, which is actually really good. When you look at the Steam charts here, it actually shows that we're at mixed reviews. So we're at 59% of 440 reviews, which is a lot of reviews, right? We've noticed before that in the past, the reviews were getting significantly smaller as Edge of Fate aged each month. But 440 in the first 2 days means a lot of people are voicing their opinions about this. And when you click on this, I will say that, people online, they have kind of a weird approach to how they rate something negative. I'll read just the first one that comes up here. This one has a ton of medals too, which is very strange to me because it's not a very articulate reason as to not recommend it. But it says Star Wars season, looks inside, $300 worth of Star Wars items. I want to earn cool stuff instead of being bombarded with ads asking for my money. Brother, you can earn tons of Star Wars loot by just playing the game. Just play it. There's plenty of I have tons of Star Wars weapons after playing for just one day. And yes, there are a ton of ads and a ton of cosmetics in Eververse. Of course. This is how Bungie makes up for their loss in revenue from having a massive team and not a very big audience of people that play their game. Like, this is well known and well documented that the player base is very small and the size of the dev team is massive, 550 people. And the only way they can satiate that bill and have an ROI that's somewhat positive, if even positive right now, because we're probably in the red, is by having a ton of cosmetics in Eververse. And the people that are crazy rich, are going to spend God knows how much money on those items, and they will enjoy them, and they are literally keeping the lights on around here. Does that diminish the quality of Renegade's campaign? No. Does that mean that you can't get any Star Wars weapons except for in Eververse? God, no. I mean, that's the most absurd idea. So it's like, this is a not recommended, and everyone upvoted this. This is a terrible take, in my opinion. Like, this is not, I don't agree with this at all. The next one says, first thing that pops up is a effing ad to buy microtransactions themed of the expansion. What a scam. Laugh my ass off. It's literally just regurgitating the same thing as the last one. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the same message. Because there's cosmetics in Eververse, game bad. Which, guys, I really hope that that's not how we judge the quality of content in any given game. It might rub you the wrong way that there are cosmetics in Eververse, but they are an optional cosmetic. You don't have to spend your money. You can play the campaign without having to buy Eververse cosmetics. I mean, it costs $40. And these takes are really weird. Like, I wish people would be more articulate and be like, well, I logged in and I had a ton of error codes with Marion Barry and I was soft locked in the game for 2 hours. And I'd be like, dude, that is a legitimate reason to say not recommended, or at least to say, like, I was frustrated on my first day. Or maybe you played the campaign and you felt like there was a lot of, I don't know, discontinuity between Edge of Fate's campaign and Renegades, or that you didn't appreciate the direction that the narrative was going, or you thought that a Star Wars X Destiny 2 collaboration was kind of a cheap money grab. Like, those types of things at least have like a certain degree of intelligence to them or conversation. Just being mad that cosmetics exist in the Eververse, like, I hate to be so, combative here, guys, but it's like, this is just not a good take, in my opinion. Like, you should expect this as much. Of course, the Star Wars X Destiny 2 collaboration was going to have a ton of cosmetics. Like, of course that was going to happen. Where's the, managing your expectations, right? Like, where is that, guys? Anyways, that aside, those are the reviews that are, causing it to be negative or mixed. In my opinion, I do think the campaign was good, and I'm having fun right now in the Lawless Frontier and doing the Invasion playlist right now. But moving on to the next part. Players are praising the Star Wars inspired story, the Praxic Blade lightsaber exotic, and a campaign that actually feels fun to replay rather than a chore. I agree with all of this. Story was good, fun, creative, very unique. Lightsaber is absolutely insane and has crazy functionality and super fun. And the campaign, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna play the campaign a ton of fun just for the sake of doing it for fun, but it wasn't a bad campaign. I enjoyed playing through it, and I will enjoy playing through it again. One player on r/Destiny the game said, Renegade's campaign is just pure fun, and it feels good to have fun again. Having just finished up Renegades, I feel really confident in saying Renegades may just be the most fun I've ever had in a Destiny campaign. Wow. Another said how the new guns and Star Wars style aesthetic make it sound so much better than Edge of Fate. I agree with that. I mean, you have to compare Matter Spark, right, to the Star Wars stuff. It's like it's a pretty easy comparison to say is doing much better, right? Because Matter Spark was pretty mid at best. No one was super jazzed about Matter Spark. I think there's probably 3 people in the world that really enjoyed that. Most people were kind of like, "What are we doing? Rolling around on the ground here." Didn't really care much for it, but that's still a valid opinion, I think, and I agree with that one. Others are a bit more measured, even if they're still enjoying it. One user wrote, "I had fun with the campaign and DLC so far, but this feels more like a season. I finished the campaign and did a few quests here and there after, and I can confidently say that this DLC is pretty much a season, a bigger sized one at best, with only first and the last missions being actual campaign missions." Okay, so it's basically comparing it to the previous seasonal model. And, now we're in this sort of, 2 6 month cycle, and things are meant to be like a content drip for us, right? So there will be a dungeon and an exotic mission and more things as we go on, obviously dawning and things like that. But comparing it to a season, I think, is a pretty fair criticism. But I would say that the campaign, at least in my interpretation, was pretty long and lengthy, and I liked all of the missions. I thought all the missions were pretty. There's some pretty tough puzzles in there too. There's some pretty creative things you're doing where you're flying around on your Sparrow and stuff like that. Looking ahead, Bungie said it plans to share a multi-year roadmap in a new State of the Game update sometime next year to explain what comes after Renegades. On top of that, there are new rumors that a full Destiny 3 has entered early development at the studio, although nothing has been confirmed. Obviously, they're not going to talk about this until they actually decisively pull the trigger basically and say, let's do this. Because there's a lot of issues that go with this where one is if we make a Destiny 3, then what happens to Destiny 2, right? Because Destiny 1 still exists as a box product game and it's not getting any more updates. Destiny 2, does that continue as a live service game? And then is Destiny 3 a box product game, or is it a live service game and then Destiny 2 servers get shut down? Like there's going to be, if we actually are going down the route of Destiny 3, which I'm all for, by the way. I love any more Destiny IP is always better for me and in my opinion because I like this franchise. I like the aesthetic, I like the art style, I like the guns, I like the gunplay, I like the history of it. I really want it to do well, but we're currently in a downturn, a continued downturn, even with Renegades. How do you feel about Renegades and these numbers? Are you back in and having fun? Or are you still wanting or waiting for Bungie to prove that Destiny is worth your time again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It would appear as though a lot of people are not back right now, which is really crazy to see. I didn't think we would see numbers this low. It's kind of alarming what we're seeing, even from day 1 to day 2. I'm sure the dungeon is going to boost the numbers up. I'm sure the exotic mission is going to boost the numbers up. But it feels kind of like a heartbeat that's getting like weakened with time, Like we don't get as big of a pump each time. And this time, our pump, our heartbeat, our launch moment, our big arrival was met with the weakest jolt we've gotten ever before. 70,000 as an adrenaline shot to the population. And during its low point, we went below 30,000 on day 1, you know, below 30,000 on day 1 during its low population point. And now during its peak hours, we're hitting 50,000. So when it's 70 to 50, I'm worried, this type of trend, it doesn't look very appealing. Maybe Bungie is making so much money from the Star Wars cosmetics that it evens out, or maybe they even make a positive profit, even though there's significantly fewer people logging in. Maybe that's the case. Hopefully that's the case, because if this trend continues, I worry about what the next 6-month expansion will look like. What's it called? Shadow and Order or something, right? Like there's at least several expansions that have been announced. And if every 6 months we drop from 100 to 70 to wherever we're going to be at in 6 months, 40, so on and so forth, it worries like how low can it go, right? And there's a little bit of a logical fallacy there. It's called the slippery slope, where because this, therefore this in the future, you can't ever predict the future, right? You can never predict the future, but it should be said that when you look at the all-time graph and you see a trend, a downward trend, that you can kind of, expect a downward trend, right? And this doesn't necessarily ruin the game for us. Like the campaign is still good. Like I still think the campaign is good. I still think you should try it out. I just think you should. I think it's worth $40 personally. That's my review of it. But just because I say that and because I feel that way, it doesn't mean that that moves the needle so much. Like Because I say that you should buy the campaign if you like Destiny, because I think you'll have fun with it. It's not like 50,000 more people get online, tomorrow. So, streamers and content creators, we don't have as much influence as maybe people like to perceive. We're mostly here as a conduit to the community to discuss the news and break things down and digest these conversations in a way that is useful and productive. And that's the reason why we make these videos and where we're talking about this stuff. And it's definitely unfortunate that we've launched to such a low population. And I, the last bit I would say is that I have seen several comments from people that have said stuff like, "Oh no, 70,000 is fine, guys. It's fine. It doesn't. This is a perfectly fine number." And that's okay if you want to think that or feel that way. I'm not making you feel differently if you truly feel like 70,000 is fine. But I would ask you, what evidence do you have to believe that that's okay? What evidence do you use to say this is an acceptable number that we can, continue to have every six, decline every 6 months or a certain population? Like, where do you get that evidence from? Because in regards to my take, is that the evidence shows that we should have had probably closer to 100,000, and going on to day two, we should be keeping closer to 70,000 at least, right? But it feels like things are quickly spiraling out of control, and it's really weird when the reviews aren't as bad as before, but we're getting like almost a worse outcome. Like I'm like starting to get that weird feeling, that like ominous feeling, like, is this it? Like, is this how she goes? Like, it's a really weird time, and it's a really weird sentiment to feel. We'll see. We'll keep tracking it, and we'll keep playing and keep doing what we do. And who knows, man? I feel like when things get this crazy, though, there is definitely crazy news on the horizon, because Sony owns this company now. Sony owns this IP, and they are a company that does not want their game to die. They bought them for billions of dollars for a reason, to make a profit. Like, they said, we're going to buy you for billions of dollars so we can make more money than what we spent. And I think that's, how does they action that, right? How do they make that happen? And I'm imagining that there will be some big reveals and some big announcements soon, if not in the next month, but definitely in 2026 with the State of the Game article. And I'm sure we're going to hear more from Sony, because Sony said about Bungie before to take accountability for their mistakes and for the failures of Destiny 2. They said that they were disappointed in them. And then I think the third thing Sony said about Bungie, I mean, Sony is literally breathing down their neck. The third thing they said is that they cost them like $200+ million, So that's like three strikes from Sony towards Bungie. And then Pete Parsons left. I mean, that's almost the fourth strike, I guess, because Pete Parsons left, and they hired Justin Truman to be the studio lead instead of the CEO. So this is bad. You know what I'm saying? Sony is definitely looking at this from a financial standpoint and saying that this company is bleeding us of millions of dollars every year. We need to do something. What is that thing that they're going to do? What is Sony going to do to fix this problem? That's really my genuine interest. And what I find fascinating is Sony is not going to be like, you know what, let's Concord this game. Let's shut the store, let's shut the studio doors, let's ship it and pack it up, because Concord launched and it had such a failure that it wasn't worth it, right? It had such a low population. But Destiny has been a successful game for so many years that it's not Concord. You know what I'm saying? Destiny 2 is not Concord. It's nowhere near that. So there will be a strategy, there will be a plan, there will be a future for Sony to course correct what Bungie has done. And will it be successful, though? Is it possible? Is the real question. And we'll see. We're going to find out. It's going to be a wild road. You know what I'm saying? The next 2 years for Destiny 2 are easily going to be the craziest 2 years, because we are going to get some big announcements, at least in terms of like, not from the game standpoint. The playing from day to day might feel a little dry, especially with a smaller studio, maybe less content, right? But from a studio standpoint, there is some heavy conversations being had right now. There is definitely Sony, you know, Sony and Bungie in a room, arguing it out, battling out what's going to happen and how they're going to fix this. And some panic is happening for sure. You cannot even begin to think that that's not happening to some degree, because this is definitely not the outcome that Sony was expecting.